Okay, so I've got a lot of my walls done for this level, enough of the exterior to get an idea of the building envelope. And then I've started to set out the different AutoCAD drawings lined up with my levels so that I can see that my exterior walls line up with the AutoCAD drawings throughout the whole building. And so now I'm going to also then have a look at the levels that I have, just to remind you there what I've been doing. So I've got these levels for each main floor and then one for the roof. And they establish the measurements when we're working vertically. So the heights, in other words. Looking back in the floor plan, you can establish measurements in the plan in a similar way using grids. And so if you haven't used the grid tool, it's really useful, especially if you've got columns. So I know with the buildings that you're working on, most of you will have columns. And so if you've got columns, and I'll just show you here, like I do in my floor plan, you can see these columns, which are set out, you'll see, following a pattern. Then you should make a grid first for those. Okay, so using the grid tool, you draw them just like levels. Okay, so you click a point, and I'm just going to start with a point on one of my columns. I'm trying to get the centre point of it, and so to force it, I'm going to type SC, which is snap to centre. That's just a shortcut in Revit. And then I can go through and just draw the second point on my grid line. Okay, so it's just 2 points. And so I've got another column here. So again, SC. You might not need to snap to the centre, but you need to know where the grid line would be drawn. So notice I'm just stretching the ends so that later on they're easier to select. Okay, so here it's being difficult, so I'll just start again. Grid, SC, and there we are. Okay, so notice also I'm lining the ends up just by stretching them using the grip, and that'll give you a padlock just like you have with a level. And that way you can stretch the ends again as a group. You can copy grid lines just like anything else. So I'm going to select just one of them and then clicking on the copy button. Oh, we have to. So.
If the dimension is measuring the paper space,
yep.
the real size of the paper space rather than
yeah.
the plan in model space.
Yeah.
What makes it measure?
Oh, it's much better just to do the dimensions in the viewport, in model space. But on the page still, but just going to model. Into model space.
Yeah, but when we are in paper space,
yeah, it's not the best way to do it because do it in model space in the viewport.
In the viewport. Oh,
yeah.
in the viewport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry about that. So, like I was saying, you can copy a grid just like anything else. If you select it, click the copy button, and just make sure you use a base point. Okay, so you can click a point and then click on a second point to place it. Okay, so sorry, again, I'm just lining the ends up. And well, you can use commands like offset as well with these, but I think copy is probably the best one. So again, just clicking on the copy button, and then you can snap to any point to pick up your grids, and then again place them by snapping to anything. And it's one of those tools that really should be one of your main tools in Revit. Copy and move and these tools you have on the modify panel, but I notice a lot of people still rely on just dragging things roughly because they don't spend enough time just learning how to use those tools. And it should be your main way of copying, like I said, because it's more accurate. Okay, and so then again with the copy tool here, if I type SC to pick up the base point, and then again SC to snap to the second point, I know it's copied precisely. Whereas if you copy by or just move by dragging, it's impossible to be that accurate. So it's just a matter of looking at the prompts you get. I'll just do it one last time. So again, with the grid selected, once I click copy, then well here I want to pick that up and line it up with the wall there, rather than the column. So I'm going to pick it up on the midpoint of my wall, and then take it across again to the center line that I have in this other wall, and that's going to copy it precisely. Now, having done that, it's still going to need one on that that column there. That's an offset column, so that's a different one, but the rest are all okay. So that's basically the column grid going in that direction. You can see the numbers now aren't in the right order because of the way that I drew them. It's simple then to just select them though and change the number afterwards. It won't let me change it to 1 because I already have a 1. So I'll just change it to 1A. Then I can change 1 into something else. And, well, I'd want to change it to 2. I've got 2 already there, so maybe it'd make more sense to go from the last one and work backwards. So it's that one's 7, 6, 5, this one should be 4. And there we go. So now I can change this to 3, this to 2, and then this can become 1. And it's a nice way of having measurements on your drawings at an early stage without having too many dimensions, because you can have a spacing for your grids, and that's going to establish a lot of the spacings inside your plan without having measurements all over your plan. And so then going the other direction, I'm just going to again go back to the grid tool, and then going to the again center point of this column, of this circle, I'll type SC to force it, and I'll take this grid, I'll do it over on the left, and I'll stretch it out to the right, and you can have letters as well as numbers for your grid bubbles. And then again, I want to copy this one now, so just using the copy tool again, I'll pick it up on the intersection this time, and then snap that to the center of one of my columns. Probably don't have too many more going this direction because they're staggered, but well, that's enough for now. So I'll just do one more actually. Okay, so my building's fairly involved, but if you've got a more rectangular building, then the column grid might not be as complicated. But essentially you just want to look for the columns that you have in your building. That's going to be your main structure, and it's going to carry through all of your levels. And so if I go up to level 3 now, I've still got that grid there showing. And so then back on the ground floor, now I can use structural columns to place them on the grid. Right, so architectural columns won't work as well, but structural columns will. Right, so with structural columns, then just make sure it's on vertical column. If it's on slanted, it won't work. And then you can go to load family, and then in the structural columns folder, you have all of these columns, not columns. Okay, columns is for architectural columns. We want structural columns. And so I want concrete. And then you've got the basic shapes there. So you've got concrete rectangular, concrete round, and concrete square. So I want concrete round. And I'll just use open. And so there you can see in properties now, I've got a few sizes preloaded. And so I'll just place one in my other drawing. So I'll just do that again. So just clicking on structural column now, it's already loaded. So you can see there that it's that one's too small. See, the 450 is probably right. But if you don't have the size, you can always go to Edit Type, duplicate, and then put in your new size. So there you can see it's going to snap to the intersection. But also, just watch out with columns. The default setting is depth. And this is a real problem with Revit. Just with the template, when you start placing columns, you've got to remember, for the first one, set it to height instead of depth. So it goes up instead of down, and you'll be fine after that. So now I'm going to choose roof as my height, and then I can just go through and click onto the points where I need them. Don't worry if they go over walls. For now, that's fine. Now, if you've got a lot of them on basically every intersection of your grid lines, you can try this at grids tool, which can save a bit of time. But honestly, it doesn't take that long if you go through and just place them by clicking on each intersection, and then you'll know as well that each one is meant to be there. Okay, so I won't place all of these now, but just so you get the basic idea, I'll put a couple more in. And so there you can see it's not, it hasn't got a grid at the moment to snap to, but I can always just type SC to force it to snap to the center of that, and it should let me. There we go. Okay, so with the 3D view, I can then see how that's coming together and make sure things are lining up. So, you know, starting to look like a building, still, you know, quite a bit more to go. But once you get a handle on those main elements, then you'd want to start thinking about how things go together. And so looking at stairs and railings and those circulation elements. But I'll do those in the next video. So, unless there's anything else about columns. They're not too difficult usually, but well, maybe just a good chance to point out the structure tab as well before I finish that. So on the structure tab, you'll see these other structural elements, things like beams and beam systems. So if you have other exposed structural elements other than columns, then think about those. They're really useful, things like beams especially.
You've got like exposed trusses in the ceiling.
Yeah. So you've got, there are trusses in Revit. Yep.
Oh, yeah, trusses.
Yep, so they've got them in the library. And so the main issue with structural elements though is they won't show by default. No. So check your view settings. If you go into here, visibility graphics, edit, and then go down in the list there, you'll see that by default they'll often be turned off. Right. Here they're not, they're turned on. But if they're, well, we'll go back up here, I'm sure. Oh no, I must have turned mine on. But let's have a look in this view. I know they're on there as well. But you'll see structural plans. The reason they're different is that they'll always show the structure. And then also in your, let's go to a elevation. Okay, so there, oh, I can actually see the columns, but sometimes the columns will show differently. That's funny, they're showing normally there. Let's see here. No, because they're concrete, they're showing the way you'd want them to. So I'll get another column. Oh, I'll just use the one that's here actually. So you've got this other UC column, universal column. So I'll just put one of those in, and you can see it shows like a line. And it'll show that way in the elevation as well. So there's the same column. And that's just because of the view setting. So here, if you set it to fine, then you'll see it. So there's the column. And in the 3D view, same thing. At the moment it's just a line, but if I set it to fine, it shows with all the geometry. So beams and other things like that, they're great to get all that detail that you need sometimes from your structure, but to show them, just make sure those two things, your visibility settings and then the detail level. So well, I'll finish that video there. I'll do another one on stairs.